Okay, class, so for this tutorial, this is a little bit more complex, but it's not that different. It's still the same process, it's just a different shape. Um, so this is an interesting kind of star-like shape that you see in a lot of Islamic design architecture. It could be seen on walls, it could be seen in jewelry, and you see this a lot in fashion too. So I thought it would be interesting to recreate something like this. And I'll show you the inspiration. The inspiration is actually a wall piece that you see in a lot of types of buildings in the Middle East as well as Southeast Asia. So I wanted to create something similar to this particular shape, but obviously a little bit more simplified. This is very complex, but there's something about this weave-like texture, this movement that you don't know where it ends and where it begins, which is very fascinating. But you still kind of see how these shapes are constructed, which is what makes this an interesting challenge. So let's dive in, okay? So what you'll notice with this particular star-like shape is that it has this rectangular-like movement to it. And that's exactly what it's recreated from, is rectangles with just a little point. So this is how we construct something like this. I'm going to make this slightly smaller and zoom in, so this is the only thing we see here. Alright, so we take our rectangle tool and pretty much draw something around this size, like so. Again, I'm keeping my strokes thick, nice and thick, so I can see what I'm doing. Alright. Now you'll notice that there is a little bit of a point happening over here. So what I'm going to do is go into my pen tool and add a few anchor points. So I'm going to zoom in to this area right here and select this. You'll notice that this is the middle point of my rectangle. Right? So I'm going to take my pen tool right so. So then you'll notice when you go into the pen tool, by default you're in the pen tool, you're going to go into add another anchor point right here, which is right below. I use those pink guides, so this is the center axis. And I'm just gonna put a few dots like so, and then I'm just going to raise up the triangle like this. Right? So now I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom as well. So what I'm going to do is zoom in like so, and I'm going to select my rectangle and go back to my anchor point tool like so. And I want to make sure that my points are aligned. So what I'm going to do is use the rulers. So by default, if you open Illustrator, you usually have your document like this. So if you want to access your rulers, you pretty much go into Window. You go into, not Window, but View, and you can see that you can access your rulers down here. So you can say Show Rulers, or you can go Command R, Command R, Command R again, accessing them. So what I want is to bring in some guides to help me align some of my points like so. And I want to make sure that I can see my guides, so what I'll do is go into View, Guides, Show Guides. So now I can see my guide right here in turquoise. And I'm going to click and drag from the left-hand side for the for the vertical axis. The top gives me the horizontal type of ruler, like so. So I want to stick to the vertical ruler. Now I want to put in some points right where my guides are, so that makes things a little bit easier on my end. And then I'm going to drag like so. Alright, So now I have this rectangular shape with a few points on each side, and like this shape, it is an outline, so I want to recreate that. So I'm going to make a copy by holding down Option. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, like so. And I am going to align this by selecting both, and then I'm going to go into my Align tool, align horizontally and vertically. Now you'll see that I have some spacing issues, which I'd like to correct. So now, let's say I'd like to give a little bit more breathing room to the sides, like so. So again, I'll go back into aligning like this. Now, I'm going to go into my Direct Select tool and select the top, only the top right here, so I can bring this down a little bit more. So now I'm creating a little bit more of a shape that is more custom to my liking, like so. And again, I'm going to go back into Align and just make sure everything is aligned nicely, like so. And then I'm going to go into Pathfinder. Remember, I'm going to be doing what I did with the square. So if I take this rectangle, again, just two outlines on top of each other, and I want to create a cutout. So I will select the first shape, make this black, and then I'm going to, I need to access my second shape, which is inside. So I'm going to send this shape back, and then the small shape to the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this bigger shape, and then I'm going to go to Object, Arrange Send to Back, right? So now I should be able to access my front shape. I'll just make this white, get rid of the outline, okay? So now I'm going to go into my Pathfinder tool right here, minus the front, like so. And then I'm going to go back into my outline mode. And I'm just going to click out of things that I don't need. And then just kind of minimize. And just keep this at either 3 or 4. I think, let's see. I think 4 is probably a good place to be. So we'll do that. Now you'll notice this is pretty much this shape right here, rotated a few times, duplicated and rotated a few times, okay? So the first thing we want to do is create this cross, as you see here. First basic thing is the cross. So to do that, I'm going to click and hold down Option, drag to the side, go to the corners where those handles are, those arrows, and then we will click, hold down Shift, and rotate like so. So again, we are wanting to put this rectangle on top of the first run so that we have a shape of a cross. Now again, we want to select, go into the Align tool, align vertically and horizontally, like so. Right? Now, this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. You have two crosses that you're putting on top of one another. So again, this is a more complex tutorial. I'm just going to kind of show you how it can work. But it is something that you can work with the shape builder, and this is where it comes in handy. So I'm going to select the cross, take it to the side, and I'm going to rotate it while it's selected 45 degrees. And again, I want to try to find my center axis. Now again, I'm going to select all those rectangles, like so. Hit the Align tool. And if I ever want to get rid of the guides right here, I can go into View and say Hide Guides. or you can always look for the shortcut right here, which is off to the side, which is Command semicolon. Right, so you just hit hide guides. Alright, okay, so now let's take a look at how we can bring this complexity to something that's a little bit more easier on the eye, because this looks like a mess right here. Right? So let's try it out. Let's select this. And again, it's always good to have a reference, like so, just so you can kind of see how the shapes overlap. Alright? So I'm going to go into my Shape Builder tool. And again, I'm just going to reference this shape and just see, okay, let's start off simple. I'm just going to go down. Right? And I have my first overlap. Oops, see? That's too much. Command Z, go back. Go down. Like that. And I'm just going to do this for the rest of the rectangles, just so I know that I'm going slowly and evaluating my design as I go along, just so I know that I'm not making any mistakes. Now, obviously this went off too far, so I'll just go Command Z. And just make sure I stay within the appropriate lines. See, that might be too far again. Just go. I think we might be okay. Right? See, let's go back and do this again. Like so. So we have this initial first step taken care of. So let's deselect. Let's take a look at it. So I already have some overlapping happening, which is what I want, right? Now you'll notice that you see a cross very clearly in this shape, and I want to recreate that for this shape too. So I will select the star, like so, and then just make those little moves right here. So now I have this nice view of what this angle looks like. So I want that clarity in the shape, like so. And again, pause, take a look at it, make sure you have things in place. If you want to accept a challenge, I definitely recommend doing something like this. If not, then do something simple. That's also fine. There's nothing wrong with a simple shape that has that nice, elegant movement to it. And the most important thing is we get comfortable with something like the Shape Builder tool. And just so you can kind of see just how something simple can become complex, but it can also simplify a lot of complex intersections like this one right here. Right? So now let's deselect and evaluate. So I think right here we have our cross, as we can see very clearly. Now what we want to do is we want to build that cross for this diagonal version on top of it. Right? Select, go into Shape Builder, and then let's evaluate and see how we can do this. So I see that we can get rid of these two, join them together, like so. Right? And if you need to zoom in, you can. Right? These two need to join together, like so. And these two need to join in. And when you get comfortable with something like this, it does become meditative, and it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to be comfortable with something that is complex. So your brain is kind of in a problem-solving mode. And I think this is pretty much it. Now, whether or not I want to keep these areas right here is pretty much up to me. It's nice, you can definitely keep it, but I definitely want this simplified shape in here. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in, and I will select, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these extra lines right here. Okay. or you can keep them, but for my personal preference, I am going to delete them all and just simplify as much as I could. So pretty much selecting the areas that I don't need, and it's forming a star shape within, like so. Right. Okay, let's zoom out. Let's get rid of this right here. We can compare. So this shape is a little bit shorter and a little wider compared to this right here. It's a little bit similar in proportion to the original, but it still has the same concept and flow of this interlocking weave-like effect going on. Alright? Now what's interesting is when we start to add color. So when we select our shape right here, in the Shape Builder tool, if you hold down, you'll see Live Paint Bucket. Now I can double click on the solid right here, and pops up the color picker tool, and you'll notice that it has a few different areas for you to color quickly, like so. And then let's say do something that's a little bit different. That might be too similar. Let's go like that. I personally like it without the color, and I'd like to stick to that just because I can really see a lot of the movement happening. Not that I can't see the movement here, I definitely see some interlocking happening, but I think it's kind of true to the original, this mandala-like movement that interlocks seamlessly. But this is also another way for you to take a look at how those shapes interlock well together. So as you can see, I think with the color it just shows you the overlap, underlap, overlap, underlap. So this is where that comes in handy. But I prefer the outline mods. I'm going to go back, Command Z, to its original. And yeah, this was my inspiration. And so I chose to do something a little bit more simple. And this was pretty much the recreated pattern right here. And speaking of patterns, I will see you in the next video where you will also have your assignment.